Hello, welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm Raymond Bakari, and today I'm joined by Lenny Cioe, who is primarying Senate President Dominick Ruggerio in Senate District 4 in the 2022 election cycle. He previously ran against the senator in 2020. He came very close to winning that primary. He's also part of the Rhode Island Political Cooperative, which is a slate of progressive candidates who are running for office all across the state. Lenny, how are you today?
Thank you very much for having me on your show tonight, Ray. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
And it's good to have you on. Starting with my first question here, you're currently running in Senate District 4 in the 2022 Democratic primary. But before we dive into the issues and all your campaign platform policy proposals, can you tell those watching a little bit about yourself and why you're running for state Senate?
The first time I ran out of just anger. For years, I carried the anger of my friends that died from AIDS in the 80s and how no one cared. I ran on the anger that my father had Parkinson's and he was had given his life to the state of Rhode Island as a teacher at Pontiac High School, and he died from Parkinson's, and his medication costs were anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And now those same medications would be $5,000 to $6,000 a month, and how little has changed. I ran on the anger of what was going on during the COVID crisis, how that thin veneer of how hospitals really worked was ripped away. We were averaging 60 to 70 hours a week. They had always run a short-staffed, and as far as healthcare, that was part of their corporate healthcare plan. That way they made more money. And during the pandemic, it showed how short-staffed we were. And that was my initial running, because I felt that everything had been neglected for so long and then forgotten about that. The anger of that is what motivated me the first time. But now, my second time running, that anger turned into a strong resolve that what I walked those streets with no name recognition and just my message, and people heard me, and I won. Now I won in a way that you can see. I actually won because it moved the needle. It moved the needle forward in a progressive movement, in a civic leader movement, that more civic leaders are needed. Nurses, electricians, people from the working and middle class are needed in the government. And that resolve is now why I'm running again, because the message is still, excuse me, the message is still clear. Healthcare is an investment in every Rhode Island. Education is an investment in every child, and is an investment in the future. That small businesses need a fair tax structure so that they can expand their businesses and pay their employees living wages and get them benefits. And that the climate crisis is upon us, and we're not prepared. And we as a state, we need to start preparing for what the future is going to bring to us.
This is going to be the second time you're facing the Senate President. The Senate President is widely regarded, alongside the Speaker, as like one of the most powerful elected officials in the state. How confident are you heading into this rematch versus Senate President Ruggerio?
Last time he spent $350,000 to my 17. And I only lost by 300 votes. If you do the math, look how much he spent on each vote trying to stop me. This time I'm better prepared. Last time we built the plane while we were flying, but this time we can fly the plane and actually reach new heights. So I'm very confident about the team I put together, the amount of volunteers I have, the money I'm raising, and the name recognition I have now.
There are also concerns that have been raised by yourself and other progressives that this district can end up being gerrymandered and carving out certain parts that are more favorable to you, which is the province part of the portion. Can you explain a little more for those watching about these concerns and why you believe it's important to bring awareness to them?
The only thing I can say that about this whole redistricting, that it was a farce. It was a complete farce. Have you gone to any of the redistricting meetings? Ray, have you gone
My
yourself?
apologies. I thought you were asking in general. I personally haven't. I haven't been able to due to my work and school schedule.
Okay. Well, you go to the meetings, and the Kimball Brace that they hired to do the redistricting and the actually do the maps comes, or his associate comes, and they just explain each district and why it's the way it is and the population and everything. Then the committee gets up there and they talk about how transparent they are and what a good job and how hard they're working, and then they pat each other on the back. You walk up and start asking them questions about population change, about communities that they're ripping up, that they're splitting up. You start to ask them, why does it look like the Senate President and the Speaker of the House have their hand on the scale when it comes to the way the districts are drawn? And they start to yell back at you. And they start to get very insulted that you're asking them actual questions with facts and base on why things are the way they are. In my district, I won Providence almost 2.5 to 1. I won Fruit Hill, same balance, 2 to 1. Other areas I either tied, or his strong area was Woodville, which is that's his stronghold. But if you look at the new maps compared to the old maps, most of Providence and where I won is gone. Dividing up the Elmhurst district and the Elmhurst precinct again. And what I feel about this is that one of the questions that was asked by a reporter was two questions: how the incumbents meet with the company that's doing the maps, and they show him where they want the boundaries to be, and then that the incumbents' names are put in, their addresses are put in to make sure that the maps include them in it. So in other words, they're drawing the lines and they're making sure that they're in it. That isn't how you do it. We're all citizens of the state of Rhode Island, all of us. Why are the incumbents given special privileges to redistricting maps? The prison gerrymandering, the discussion that went on about that, when you had Senator De La Cruz didn't understand the idea of proportions. She kept saying that the majority of people in prison are white, but if you do the proportions to the population, they're mainly a majority of them are Black and brown. She didn't understand that, and she must have said it 3 or 4 times. I mean, it was just a farce, and it was a waste of taxpayers' money. It was a total waste of money to the taxpayers, and the communities they divided up for power. Typical example: Archibald, Senator Archibald. If you can pull up the map of his district, how he cut into Lincoln to cover land that he bought to build houses on, how he kept his section of North Providence to make sure because he needs it to win in his district. How Ruggerio cut out Providence. But then you look at Sakachi's district and nothing's changed. You look at other people's districts that they don't have challenges, didn't have close challenges, and nothing's changed. So the whole thing was just a farce. They called it a road show, and that's exactly what it was. Just a road show, a smoke and mirrors road show, and that was it. And it was a waste of taxpayers' money.
Now, looking at the issues, whenever someone runs for state senate, the majority of that campaign is knocking on doors, listening to what's on voters' minds. What are some of the key issues you're hearing from residents in the district, and which ones are you going to highlight in the campaign?
One of the main things is healthcare and the cost of healthcare and the cost of medications. And the Senate president made devastating cuts in his 2018-2019 budget to Medicaid, which directly affects nursing homes, healthcare, and healthcare facilities. By doing these devastating cuts, he lowered the reimbursements and making the insurance companies that get this make more money while they're taking money away from patient care. One issue that I constantly hear, and I know the answer is we need to do an audit of the companies that are managing our healthcare to find out how public funds are being spent. And that is one of the biggest issues, is the healthcare and how our public funds are used for healthcare, and how these cuts to Medicaid, less and less physicians and providers are not taking Medicaid because the reimbursements are so low. So that was one issue. Education is the next that we need to improve our education. Under the Senate presidents since 1984, there's been cut to education, and look what's happened. Central Falls is still under state control. Providence is now under state control. That's under his watch, and so goes Providence, so goes the rest of the state. And we need to refund education and make it public education and make it work. They created this crisis, and now they're filling the gaps with charter schools, which take public funds, but charter schools are privately owned, and it's the they're creating a for-profit education system. So public schools, and creating good public schools by raising taxes on the top 1%. I don't know about you, Ray. I go to work every day and I work hard. And I don't understand why the top 1% get to walk away with more money in their pocket than we do. They pay a flat 5% income tax, while the rest of us pay 12 to 22. So is that fair to the rest of the people in Rhode Island? Why is the Senate president so concerned about protecting their money, instead of, which he stated in a Boston interview, that he had no intentions of raising taxes on the top 1%? Why is he so concerned about protecting their money when the rest of us deserve the same break, or they should just pay their fair share? I'm not asking them to pay more or less, just their fair share like the rest of us. We go to work every day. Why would we have to pay more in taxes than they do? And small businesses, they need the same privileges that large corporations get. They need a fair tax structure. They should get the same privileges like large corporations. Large corporations come to the state. Then they decide to open up another building or build another building. They get a tax break for doing that. Well, small businesses should get the same thing. You have a small restaurant, pizza place. So we're going to just use that for an example. They do really, really well. They decide to open up another location. When they open that location, they should get a tax break for the first year, tax break for the second year, and slowly, gradually bring it back up to where it should be. So that way they can get that business going and rooted into the new area they went into. That way they can hire more help, give them better wages, give them benefits. That is, and that message works because there's a lot of people in the district that have small businesses.
Looking more into your campaign platform, some of it you touched upon in late toward the end of that answer. One of the goals that you have in this campaign is to create a fair tax system for all. In terms of legislation, because I know there's proposals, for example, people making the 400K or more income tax bracket, like the tax hike going up on that bracket. What other measures would you consider if elected?
That's what we need to start there, Ray. We truly need to start there. And then we have to look how like large corporations like CVS pay so little in taxes. And the excuse is, well, they employ so many people, but we're still paying the people that they employ are still paying for their tax break. So through our income tax, through our property tax, we end up paying their tax for their tax break. They need to pay more into the state. They should pay for their keep, they use the sewers, they use the roads, they use the schools. Their employees use the schools. They use our water. They should pay for their keep and their fair share. The state made them wealthy. Why can't they now pay the state for what it's done for them?
Healthcare reform is another signature issue on your campaign platform, and you work in the healthcare field. You're a nurse. I'm just curious to know, what kind of healthcare system would you advocate for in the state Senate?
First, we have to do an audit on the Medicaid, Medicare, find out how our money's being spent. After that audit, restructure it so that we can bring the Medicaid reimbursements up, and then consider expanding Medicare so that way we can get more people on it that don't have health insurance, because that in the end costs us more. And those two steps forward would be a huge lift, but it could be done by the state. And by spreading it and creating more healthcare, you create a healthier population. But it's got to be done first, and I got to get in to actually push the bill through that's been sitting there and gets killed every year, to have the audit on these companies and find out where our public funds are going. That alone would give us more money to spend.
A topic I brought up when I had your opponent on the show was the idea of term limits for state legislators. This is a bipartisan issue that has support from both Democrats and Republicans in the state. Since I asked him, it would only be fair to ask you, where do you stand on the idea of term limits?
I believe elections are term. I think elections are term limits in themselves. If you win against a long-term opponent, you created the term limit. But in the way this state is run, we should have term limits. He's been in since 1984, 85. I mean, Ray, you probably weren't even born then. So, I mean, that's how long he's been in. And why? Because he cozies up with the big lobbyists, the corporate donors. He's always got enough money. He's created enough power to crush any opposition. So in that way, we do need term limits. What we really do need is campaign finance reform to curb this money coming from corporate lobbyists. And they're not giving that money string free. They're giving that money so that the Senate president will do what they want him to do and make legislation that works for him. Last year, he's claiming that he's concerned about the climate. his corporate fossil fuel lobbyists are directly reflected in his legislative agenda. Last year, Ruggerio made it one of his top priorities for the Senate to vote on and pass a massive tax break for ExxonMobil. Why would you give one of the largest corporations a tax break? Yet they've given him a lot of money. So that's a direct pay for play. And that's the problem. It's not term limits. It's the amount of money that the corporations spend to get state legislators to do what they want them to do. Ray, there's a really good, I'll get it to you. It shows how corporations love state legislatures because they actually make more money by having them having their lobbyists there, getting them to do what they want in each state. And that's a typical example of what happens with the corporate lobbyists, with ExxonMobil. Same thing happened with Medicare. He rammed through that budget in 2018 and 2019, the cuts to Medicaid, but he was cozying up with the tens of thousands of dollars from the lobbyists for healthcare, insurance corporations, and multi-million-dollar pharmacy companies, giving him money for his campaign, but cutting Medicaid. How does that serve the people of Rhode Island? That's what needs to change. Is the amount of money that's spent by corporate lobbyists and corporate donors to get people in that will do their bidding. That, to me, that's the main thing that needs to be changed.
I understand what you're saying with the campaign finance. Just circling back to the main point of the question. So it sounds like you're not in favor of a term limits for members of the state legislature. I
am in favor of this, the term limits, but what I'm more in favor of is creating campaign finance laws that prevent the corporate lobbyists and corporate donors from picking a candidate, funding them, and then they get in and do their bidding. That's more important than campaign term limits.
So just hypothetically speaking, if you're elected to state senate, January 2023 comes, in that session, if a bill is introduced with term limits, would you vote in favor of or against it?
I would vote in favor of it, but I would work more on campaign finance reform.
And speaking,
even with because Ray, even with term limits, I call it the Rhode Island handoff. Even with term limits, you could get somebody in there, just say for they make the term limit for state senate 6 years. Then you can get that person to hand off to the next person with the corporate donors and have the same nothing change because they're getting the money that they need to crush the other candidate that wants to run against them. So that's why it has to go hand in hand. It can't be just one thing. It needs to be those two things together to stop the cycle.
So a combination of both?
Yes.
Moving on to in the hypothetical situation, if you're elected, say you're elected, January 2023 comes. If you beat Senate President Ruggerio, there would need to be a new Senate president. If elected, and you'll be aside with a couple other Rhode Island political cooperative members as well. Who would you like to see be the new Senate president and majority leader in that scenario?
I would like to see Sam Bell. Sam Bell and then or Janine Coughlin, either one.
A combination of them in both the leadership, or?
Yes, I think that would be a good combination. They're both very, very intelligent. They're well versed on all the issues. They know how to bring people together. They know how to. There's a lot they know that would really be a good leadership team.
Shifting to the non-political topics, you had attended Rhode Island College and graduated in, I believe it was 2008.
Yes.
And
I went to CC. I'm sorry. I went to
problem.
CCRI before that. I was a respiratory therapist, and then I went back to school and became a nurse in 2008.
And speaking of the nursing program, that's a very competitive program. And from my understanding, and based on word of mouth from those I know who are currently attending as nursing majors, it's very competitive. You have to have a certain GPA, apply, get accepted. The whole nine yards
They
to simply
own
put.
you. The
And
whole nursing program owns you.
the whole 9 yards to simply put. What was your time like as a Rick student?
It was one of the best education experiences I've ever had in my life. Rick is the best bang for your buck for a school in the whole state. In fact, I think in all of New England. Rick is a great, great, great school. It's big enough where you get a diverse enough group, but small enough where you don't feel lost. It's a really great combination. I absolutely love it.
Is there anything specifically you missed the most about your time?
My favorite thing about being at Rick was in nursing, you need to have study groups. And we had an all-male study group. And it was, how can I explain this? Because there was the amount of men in nursing was very small. So at that time, it's still, I mean, it's growing, but at that time, so we had an all-male study group, and the first time we got together, it wasn't working. So I set the law down. I said, we're going to come to this prepared. We're going to study to go through everything. Everybody has to be ready. If you're not ready, we're gonna what do you call it? Get you off the island. And we had all of us, there was 6 of us that studied, and we all did really, really well. And if you know anything about the maternity, there's a maternity part of the program, nursing program. And it's for most men, it's like being fish out of water. So but the group of us did exceptionally well on one of the ATI exams. And it was because we just studied, right? We just studied it. And I can't believe how well we did on that test, all of us. And there's great professors there. There's great instructors. I can't tell you the great experience I had there.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. It might be a little bit biased because I'm currently a Rick student myself, but would you say would that be one of the any of the challenges that you'd face during your time, preparing for that test and getting the study group?
All right, I don't know if Rick still uses it. They had the nursing identities, and it was a whole group of a whole way of assessing a situation. And it's something you do naturally, but when they took it out and took it apart, and you had to look at a whole picture, and then you had to use it to do your nursing diagnosis, it changed the way you thought and looked at a problem. And it forced you to grow and look at the whole picture and how to assess the whole problem and how to solve it. And that was one of the greatest learning experiences. I hope they still use that. I know a lot's changed in the nursing program, but the nursing identities that they taught us it changed my patient care. It changed a lot in my life, and how to accomplish and how to do better.
I personally wouldn't know because I'm not in the nursing program. I'm going as a media communication, but I'll definitely ask around to figure that out because that does sound like an interesting story.
It's Ray. It's a great Raymond. I'm sorry. It's
That's
a
fine.
great.
Either's fine.
It was one of the things that truly made an impression on me in there.
It is a great experience to go there. My final question that I ask everyone on the show here to keep tradition is, in your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
Clam cakes.
It's a good answer. It couldn't have been said better. Lenny, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine to have you on.
Thank you, Ray. You have a good night.
You as well. And
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for watching
much.
this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to see future episodes as soon as they're posted on this or the Anchor TV Rick channel, please click the subscribe button and the post notification bell icon down below. If you want to see the political profiles version of this, future and prior, you can see all that on anchorweb.org. I'm Raymond Bakari. I'll see you on the next episode.